Moving on, we have our second keynote presentation by ManageEngine on scale-up security for cloud IT management and future IT trends by Mr. A. Karthik. He is the chief evangelist with ManageEngine. Now, ManageEngine has complete and easy solutions for even your most difficult IT management problems, from keeping your business safe to ensure high availability to making your users happy. Thank you, Karthik, for joining us today.
Thank you, Bridget.
Take over the stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Let me first share my screen here. I think the audience would have been glued to these sessions today because of the cloud IT management. And I'm sure the panel discussion and followed by Mr. Manoj Kumar's presentation was very useful to all the audiences here. To continue with their inputs, I'm going to talk about scaling up security management for cloud IT and the future IT trends. The growing trends in IT add much to the O's of administrators in terms of security and management. So cloud IT management has already gained momentum, and organizations look forward to move towards cloud IT to reduce on imperative IT costs and maintenance. A security loophole like a configuration mismatch or missing security patch or unapproved data access or excessive privileges to users, etc., can dearly cost you much on IT and your business. So in this session, I'm going to talk about the ways to scale up security for your cloud IT management infrastructure, and these security tips are going to be applicable for the future IT trends as well. You could actually host your infrastructure in a public, private, or a hybrid cloud and would have chosen a service model for your business like infrastructure as service or platform as service or backend as service or a software as a service. And cloud IT management can include, but it is not limited to help desk and service management, assets and CMDB, desktop and mobile device management, identity and access management, security and information event management, network application and server monitoring. You may choose a private, public, or a hybrid cloud to host these services for IT. However, the major concern these days is to ensure security of your internal and external data. So let's first start with endpoint security. Why is vulnerability an area of grave concern to organizations? So the major challenge of growing organizations these days is the increasing number of endpoints. With steep increase in endpoints, traditional antivirus, file scanning, and security solutions are no match to the security loopholes that these devices pose to the network. In a survey conducted by ManageEngine, we found out that close to 37% of the respondents did not use any kind of endpoint protection solutions or were just in the process of evaluating potential security solutions. The same study had around 33% say that their biggest challenge with endpoint security lay in its complexity of deploying, managing, and using the application. When it comes to vulnerability assessment and threat mitigation, you have to scan your endpoints regularly to detect vulnerabilities and mitigate them immediately using patches or alternate fixes. Early identification of imminently exploitable threats that require little or no user intervention is necessary at this stage. And you also have to put the vulnerabilities in context to understand their priority, urgency, and impact. Prioritizing response such as patching or mitigation workarounds is also considered as part of the vulnerability management. And you also have to avoid hefty fines for not conforming to cybersecurity compliance and regulations like HIPAA, PCI DSS, or GLBA, and much more. Patching might interfere with the ongoing operations of business. So this is also a point to be considered. There's a whole big list of security configuration that you may have to do on workstations. Firewall audit, where you actually have to think about the ports that have to be allowed. Password policies, the strong password policy or frequent password changes. Microsoft Office security, where you have to identify the place to store documents securely. BitLocker encryption, secure remote desktop sharing, where you have to get the user approval for sharing, transferring files, and recording the sessions. manage network shares, lockout and logon security, where you have to implement the multi-factor authentication for logon activity, manage user rights and privileges, user account management, where you will actually disable the default administrator login, guest login, and accounts, and much more. User control, user account control, where you will have to emphasize the control of user activity, user account activity. And finally, you may also have to prevent browser-based attacks by managing the plugins, extensions, and browser add-ons. When it comes to patch management, you have to have a single agent to distribute patches for all applications and software, have a single console for patch management for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and ensure that patching is done for both Microsoft and third-party applications. Have a flexible deployment policy like after office hours deployment, or a shutdown or restart policy after applying patches. And all patches have to be applied only after proper testing and approval. When it comes to controlling the applications installed on workstations, you may have to have a whitelist and a blacklist of applications that are allowed or disallowed on workstations. Administrator access has to be removed on all applications and software, and just-in-time elevation of privileges has to be followed. Have control over child processes of applications, to be doubly aware of processes that do not invoke any virus or ransomware attacks. Provide application-specific privileged access to users and workstations. And these are the factors to be considered for application control. When it comes to endpoint privilege management, adopt a zero-trust security model and enforce role-based privileges to all users. To all whitelisted applications, you can allow self-elevation of privileges and remove all unnecessary local administrator accounts, which when left unnoticed can be a security loophole. When it comes to device control, you have to control all ports and connected removable devices. You have to prevent data loss with strict role-based access control policies. And you also have to limit file transfers by setting maximum file size and type of file. Create exclusive access for devices to access your computer or your network by adding them to the trusted device list. Create secure and temporary access for devices. Effectively secure files involved in data transfer operations by creating and storing mirror copies. And finally, monitor file actions in real time. When it comes to file shadowing, and it's also called as data mirroring, this is done to prevent loss of sensitive files by storing a copy of the file in a secure location. So what are the benefits of having a file shadow policy? So first of all, the actual content of the stolen files can be identified. So this is the first step in a quick and cost-effective recovery, and a crucial one. When a network failure caused by malware injection leads to corruption of original files, the business critical data frequently accessed by remote users can be restored from file shadow remote share folders. Since file details and information about endpoints, users, and devices are documented, the impacted users can be warned to change their passwords and encrypt their intellectual property, financial records, or much more. So when you have to manage and secure the browsers from one console, you have to gain complete visibility of browsers present in the network, mandate the use of trusted or approved browsers, simple and straightforward policy configuration to secure browsers from security breaches, exercise control over installation of browser extensions and plugins, discover computer compliance status with security configurations, automatically direct legacy web applications to legacy browsers, assign specific Java versions to web applications, and enforce kiosk mode with approved websites and business web applications, control access to the internet by providing or denying access to specific sites, and you may also have to restrict file downloads from unauthorized websites and ensure secure browsing. When it comes to mobile security management, that's when you have to think about the corporate owned mobile devices. If they are stolen or lost, you may have to remotely wipe off the data, either personal or corporate or both, depending on the use case. And the second security aspect that you may have to consider is to detect and report high risk and non-compliant devices that do not conform to organizational standards. And you also have to allow only enterprise apps to run on mobile devices. You may have to separate the corporate apps from the personal ones and ensure corporate apps cannot be accessed using a 4G or a 5G network to prevent data theft. Finally, you have to ensure all mobile devices are compliant with the policies for Wi-Fi, VPN, password, and etc. When it comes to SIEM, you have to cut your log storage spending while ensuring security of log data, audit security events, and meet IT compliance requirements with ease. You may also have to access and manage log data from anywhere, and you can also scale your network architecture without worrying about log volume when you move your SIEM to the cloud. When it comes to data analytics, you may want to look into software or a cloud vendor which provides augmented and predictive analytics of the data. You may have data from all verticals like service desk, network server application availability and performance monitoring, fault management, user management, desktop configuration, and patch management. You may want to share data and reports to the peers and stakeholders. And the most important factor that you may have to consider is the rich visualization of data that this cloud vendor is going to provide. And you may also want to receive alerts when data breaches a threshold. And to further enhance your security, you may consider storing passwords in a centralized vault, provide secure remote access to IT resources as and when needed, and revoke access once the job is done. Privileges can be escalated as and when it is needed, so as to start with a minimum privilege to all the technicians. Keep monitoring the activities of privileged users, and if any deviation is identified, you can escalate it as a security breach. Ensure password and active session management is protected for your DevOps resources as well. Maintain application and data passwords in the centralized vault. And you may also want to rotate them frequently too. And when it comes to user entity behavior analytics, you have to record the user and entity behavior through log collection from workstations, servers, domain controllers, network resources, and much more. Allow a grace time for the behavioral patterns to be identified and recorded. And if there is any deviation in the pattern, that's when you associate a risk factor, which will help you to identify insider threats or account compromise or data exfiltration. When it comes to data security, you have to discover the data, identify personally identifiable information stored in files, folders, or shares, audit file servers, and also analyze the storage of your data. Finally, when it comes to compliance, you have to choose the right one based on your industry, business strategy, and the government regulation. And the PCI DSS is for the payment card industry. ISO 27001 is widely used, and GDPR for organizations doing business in Europe. And now, finally, it's time for a discussion.
Well, I do not see any questions, dear Karthik. However, thank you very much for the insightful session. Truly appreciate you sharing your solutions and the trends around cybersecurity and cloud. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the session. And also to our dear participants, please do visit ManageEngine's booth to explore their solutions, and do not feel hesitant in having a one-on-one meeting with our dear Karthik on the solutions and discuss what best you can do for your companies. Thank you very much, Karthik.
Thank you, Bridget.
Yeah.